Welcome back to Real Shit, where we like to talk real shit all day, every day, all for the love of movies and sometimes TV. I am your host, Joe, and today I'm going to be doing an official recap and review of the very first episode of the Snowpiercer TV series. Before I get into it, though, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Any little bit of feedback or support would be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, I'm going to get right into it because this is something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. Because if you haven't been following the channel, I've been doing a lot of content on movie to TV adaptations and TV to movie adaptations. Like I've been covering Westworld, I've been covering Star Trek. So the idea of taking a movie and adapting it to a TV series is very interesting to me because you get to expand on the idea a little bit more. You get to add more details and tell aspects of the story that you might not have time to tell in the movie version of it. And I think that works well for a lot of different stories, including this one, because the original movie, if you don't know, by Bong Joon Ho, it actually starred Chris Evans, was actually very critically acclaimed. It's kind of a cult classic of sorts, I guess you could say. I personally enjoyed it when I watched it. I've only seen it once. And I did not watch it prior to watching the TV series because I really didn't want it to affect how I viewed the TV series. I kind of wanted to judge the TV series on its own merits. And I felt if I watched the movie too close to that I'd be constantly comparing them, and I didn't necessarily want to do that. I think it works out better when you don't do that, to be quite honest, because I think they're trying to do something slightly different with the TV series, and I'll get into that now. But if you don't know, Snowpiercer is set in this post-apocalyptic frozen world where essentially all the remaining people are on this train, and you have the train divided up into social classes, basically based on their wealth. The rich people bought their way onto the train, they bought tickets, and the poor or less fortunate people fought their way onto the train because they were essentially going to be left for dead out in the cold. So they fought their way on, so now they make their home in the rear of the train, but they have limited resources. The powers that be on the train don't really care for helping them because they're not supposed to be there anywhere. They're basically stowaways. So you have this whole, social war, class war going on between the two sides. And that's essentially what the movie was based on. Now they add another layer to it with the TV series because we're following a character named Andre Layton who basically is called into action. He's one of the tail people. So the security force basically comes in, asks for him. He's not really sure why. They take him away. And basically he's called into action because he was a homicide detective before the apocalypse. And they found this out somehow. Not really sure how, but they did. I assume they have maybe they have records on everybody. I don't know. But he's a homicide detective, so they call him into action because basically there's been a murder on the train, in the front end of the train. And they don't have anyone who's qualified to solve the murder, so they bring him in to basically do so, and they want to essentially strike a deal with him, I guess. And this is basically a little bit conflicting with his plans because he was planning a revolution of the tailies, and he's like the driving force behind that, so this kind of gets in the way of that plan a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see. Not necessarily, I don't think his allegiances are going to change, but how his tactics and what he wants to accomplish change throughout the course of the show now that he's getting a look of the other side of the equation. So that'll be kind of interesting to look at. The whole plot about the murder on the train and trying to solve it is very reminiscent of Murder on the Orient Express. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. It does creatively allow you to stretch the story out and essentially delay the revolution, because if the whole story was simply about the revolution, I don't know how you stretch that out over the course of 10 or 8 episodes or however long this is. So the murder aspect of it allows you to stretch the story out. So I think it's going to work in that aspect. I don't know necessarily how the police procedural part of the plot is going to work in this setting, but that remains to be seen. It's kind of a meshing, I guess, of different genres, which is always cool if it's done right. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So he's going to basically attempt to solve this murder while simultaneously gathering information that will aid the revolution. At least that's his initial plan. Whether he has a change of heart or not, we'll see as the show goes on. But he does have family in the rear of the train as well, so that will probably affect his decisions also moving forward. I will say, Daveed Diggs, who plays Andre, was kind of one of my gripes about the first episode, because a lot of his dialogue, and I don't know if it was how it was written or just the way he delivers it, but a lot of it was very clunky. It was very out of place. Just felt very forced at times. And this goes for a lot of the dialogue, to be honest, but his in particular bothered me the most because he was on screen a lot, because he's the lead. So again, I don't know if it's just them working out the kinks because it's the first episode. It's a pilot situation and it's going to get better. But it is something I'm going to pay attention to moving forward. Like, what is the real issue there? Is it his acting or is it the writing? So that's something that I guess I would say is a nitpick, or even maybe a major issue moving forward, depending on how it all plays out. So there's a failed revolution while he's gone, while he's out basically getting briefed for the murder, briefed about the murder. So the other tailies get impatient and they essentially take it upon themselves to just do the revolution without him. And it's real clear that they needed him, that he's kind of the driving force behind that whole situation, because the revolution does fail. And it creates a situation where the tailies have a hostage and they're kind of in this standoff with the security force. So Melanie, who's the head of hospitality and the voice of the train, she basically brings in Andre again to talk to them, to talk them down. And through the course of it all, he's like the middleman. So he makes this deal basically to solve her crime if she agrees to spare the people who are in the tail of the train and don't punish them for attempting to revolt. She agrees to it, begrudgingly, sort of. And I will say Melanie, played by Jennifer Connelly, she is a little bit more to her than meets the eye as well, because there's a bit of a twist with her character towards the end where it's revealed that she's basically running the whole operation. Her cabin is essentially the driver's seat of the train, so there's more to her than meets the eye as well. So she's kind of putting up a front, pretending that she's acting on someone else's behalf, but it's actually her that's making all the decisions, it seems like. But there are some nice fight sequences. I have to admit that during the revolution, like they have, it's very brutal, it's very violent, which is kind of reminiscent. That's one thing I do remember about the movie, is that it was pretty violent. They don't shy away from the violence at all. And they didn't really with the show either. There's quite a bit. There's a lot of blood. And yeah, it made for some pretty cool action fight sequences. So that was nice. I think the highlight of the show, though, is the train itself. Just the production design of it. And the beauty about this show, a show about Snowpiercer, is that now we can explore this train even further. We can see more of it. And something, again, that was limited in the movie. But we get to see more of how these people live, and maybe even some cars that are completely unnecessary. Like there's a car that's an aquarium, but they're doing stuff. They're like, I guess, using the animals inside the aquarium and testing them or whatever. But yeah, they have like a car with a giant aquarium. They show you the agricultural car. They show you a restaurant. They show you a school. And I think probably the coolest thing that they showed us, and I don't think this was in the movie, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but they show a room basically with people in suspended animation, and these are people who have committed crimes and been convicted of crimes. And I think that's pretty interesting, because it does kind of answer the question, like, I'm sure there's bad people on this train. Like, what happens if you commit a crime on this train? Like, are you just thrown off? Like, how does that work? Well, they address it, and it's basically you're put into suspended animation. And they have this weird doctor guy who takes care of people, which is a little bit creepy, because he was like zipping his pants up and stuff. So I don't know what's going on there, but I'm sure they'll elaborate on it moving forward. But I thought it was a nice little added addition to show the suspended animation train, or car I should say. So that was kind of cool. Nothing all too significant happens plot wise. I think it's just pretty much all set up in the first episode, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of expected. It's more just basically getting you interested in the world, and even if you haven't seen the movie, I think it does a good job of explaining all that. And I think it's going to be telling whether or not this detective story aspect of it works in this environment. Again, it's a clashing of different genres a bit, but if they could pull it off, it could be something really cool. But whether they can or not, that remains to be seen. But that's something I'll be keeping an eye on too. So yeah, overall, I mean, I don't think it was life-changing. It set up the world enough to make you want to see more, I think. And in that aspect, I guess it's mission accomplished. I would say give it a shot if you're interested at all, if you were interested in the movie, or even if you're not and you just like the premise. I'd say it's definitely worth giving a shot. If you saw it already, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on episode 1 in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? It'd be interesting to see, and I think I'm going to continue to cover this show moving forward. I'll definitely be doing a review next week of episode 2, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it keeps my interest, and it's very difficult for me to get invested in TV shows. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. I'm more of a movie guy because it's 2 hours and it's done. But when TV shows are done really well, they're done really well, and it definitely holds my interest. So I hope this one holds my interest as well. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments down below. If you saw it or if you plan on seeing it, let me know all that. Like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another Snowpiercer review. Talk to you later. Peace out.